Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Amma ba'd, we continue and we are up to the last lesson from the series, and that will be the end of the book, inshallah azza wa jal. Maxim number 12, the customs and the habits both return to every ruling the legislator makes but doesn't confine. Any ruling that came in the Sharia, any ruling that is not specifically defined how it is or how much it is or what specifically is meant to be given, etc., all of that goes back to the customs of the people. Al-'ada muhakkama, okay, and al-'urfu mu'tabar. The customs are taken into consideration. If you have, for example, the Sharia said the man has to give the woman the mahar. Tayyib. Did it specify how much mahar needs to be given? No. So what do we go back to? The custom. The children have to be good to their parents. Did it specify exactly how the children need to be good to their parents? No. So we go back to the custom, and what it says is good. We have the general guidelines by the Sharia. As long as it is halal, then we go back to the customs in the things which the Sharia did not specify. The things which are a mix of both. The things which are a mix of both, the Sharia specified certain guidelines and then left other things up to the person. Then this is something also that is understood in terms of customs. Like for example, the awrah. The awrah of the man and the awrah of the woman needs to be covered. And it's specified in the Sharia. Tayyib. Exactly how it's covered can get back to the customs of the people. For example, what colors the person wears, what exactly type of dress do they wear, like izar and qamis, sharwal and qamis, pants and a t-shirt, etc. All of these things which the Sharia did not specify goes back to the customs. And this is a very, very, very important principle when we study, because a lot of new matters, Allah halal or haram, will go back to, okay, what does the custom say about it? Or when someone says the customs have nothing to do with the Sharia, we say incorrect. The Sharia highly respects customs, but as long as they're in line with Islamic guidelines. Yes, if it's the Sharia versus the customs, then we throw customs out the window, without doubt. But if something is not mutually exclusive, then without doubt we take the customs into consideration. The Shaykh Rahimahullah says, this is a broad principle that is applied in transactions, rights, etc. Yani all types of parts in the Sharia. The specific acts of worship, not necessarily, but the things that are linked with the acts of worship which the Sharia didn't specify. The acts of worship themselves, generally speaking, are specified how they're meant to be done in the Sharia. Every ruling requires two things. Number one, knowledge of its limit. Number two, knowledge of its definition. After this, the Sharia ruling is applied to it. If we find that the legislator is who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we find that the legislator has ruled something as obligatory, recommended, prohibited, disliked, or lawful, and he has confined it, explained it, and distinguished it, then we return to the explanation of the legislator, as is the case with the command to pray and the mention of its virtue and reward. The legislator has confined it and mentioned its detailed rulings which distinguish it from other acts of worship. Therefore, we return to what Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam have limited to. The same applies for zakah, fasting and hajj. The legislator has explained it so clearly that no doubt remains. That which the Sharia came and specified, khalas. There's no give and take in it. How do we pray? We know exactly how to pray. How do we fast? We know how to fast. What is given in zakah? We know what is given in zakat and how. These things are defined. We don't need to worry about the custom in that regard. What we want is what's coming now. As for when the legislator rules on a matter but does not confine it, then it is applied to the slaves of Allah Azza wa Jal according to their custom and habit. And it is clarified to them to do so, as is the case with respect to the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَعَاشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, and live with them, meaning your wives, in kindness. It's not so much kindness, bil-ma'ruf, in goodness. Here, al-ma'ruf, from the word urf, okay, in goodness. What's goodness? If you ask a person, what's goodness? How do we define it? We go back to what? The custom. Okay? So let's just say in Australia. In Australia, is it from goodness that when you get married to a girl, you make her live with your parents, for example? It's not considered from goodness. Now let's say you go to Pakistan, and that's the norm. That when they get married, they live with their in-laws. So in Pakistan, if you were to ask, what is that from goodness, they're going to say, yes. It goes back to the custom. So we in Australia can't force a person to do what's over there, and a person over there can't say, oh, but in Australia they do something different. Same thing with, for example, eating out. Let's say in Australia, okay, it's normal for at least once a week people to eat out, or at least get food from outside. A husband says, nah, in Pakistan or in Lebanon or in Africa, they don't eat out. And the woman has to cook at home. And it's rude in those countries if a woman eats out. Do you apply the same standard here? No. Why? Because it goes back to the customs here. Okay, so all of it goes back to that which the Sharia didn't specify, the customs of where you're living in now. Both kindness in the Sharia and kindness according to reason, this should be a broader word, goodness, are applicable in this verse. Another example is the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَأْمُرْ بِالْعُرْفِ, enjoying what is good. Again, that word good is a very broad word. And how to specify what good is, again, how do you know? It all goes back to custom. For example, we mentioned being good to your parents. Tayyib. In some cultures, if you were to point your feet towards your parents, it's no problem at all. Okay, it's no problem at all. In other cultures, if you point your feet towards your parents, it's the fastest, easiest and cheapest way to get your legs amputated. Now, it goes back to the custom. So the customs there's no problem in pointing your feet towards your parents. We say to those children, if you were to do it, it's not disobedience to your parents. Because in that custom, it's not a problem. But in other customs, it's wallah, it could be a major sin. Because that's how bad it's looked at in that custom. What do we go back to? If a person says, okay, bring me an ayah or bring me a hadith which tells me I can't point my feet towards my parents. We say the Sharia made it obligatory for you to be good to your parents and not to disobey them and not to upset them, etc. How do we know what's goodness and what's bad? We go back to the custom. And in that custom, this thing is good or this thing is bad. And it's a halal matter. It's not something the Sharia has specified. So we go off what the custom has said in the instance. And these are some examples of that. The Shaykh, rahimahullah, is going to give a lot of examples now about times where the custom is taken into consideration. How do you know the custom of a people, of a society? This is not, and these rules are not for the layman to implement. I got a call during the week, and the brother was asking about everything is halal until proven haram. So the brother was having this conversation amongst other brothers, and they were implementing this rule. And I explained to the brother that everything is halal until proven haram. Yes, this is a principle. But number one, who implements that rule? If you implement the rule and you say, okay, we can eat this or we can't eat that because everything is halal until proven haram, this goes from a qawaid al-fiqhiyyah to a what? It's gone from the realm of qawaid al-fiqhiyyah, theoretic knowledge, to becoming a what? Being a what? Use a different word. Starts with a fa. Fatwa. Jazakallah khairan. First lesson back, mashallah, in about 15. Allah barik, and he's on the water. Barakallah. Okay, it becomes a fatwa. It becomes a fatwa. So, if we say the rule is everything is halal until proven haram, we say, is that a rule? You say, yes, without doubt it's a rule. If I tell you, okay, so can I go play this, or can I wear that, or can I eat this? If you say, brother, everything is halal until proven haram, say, yes, you're allowed. What have you given now? A fatwa. The person has to be a person of sound knowledge where they're qualified to give fatwa in order for them to implement these principles. This is very important. A person has to be of a level of knowledge and qualified to implement these principles. Don't mistake these theoretic principles for giving fatwa. No. We are here to learn how fatwa are given, how fatwa are derived. Not for us to give these fatwa. Aslan, the brother was talking about meat. And what did we say about meat? It's an exception to the rule. According to the majority of ulama, that everything is halal to proven haram. One of the exceptions from the two, the meat and the private parts. Yani nothing is halal in terms of marriage until you prove that it's halal. Okay? Yani you have to make sure the person is not married, the person is not in the iddah, the person is not related to you in a mahram level, etc. And also meat. You have to make sure that the meat is halal before you can eat it. The asl is that it's haram. So these are exceptions to the rule. So even the application of it, they made a mistake in. That's if they were not on the other opinion. But even then, they're not allowed to give the fatwa until they confirm. Because until it's proven in the Sharia haram, there's a million ways for you to prove something haram. There's a million ways. You need to have the ability to go through the Islamic text or apply Islamic principles to know is it haram or not. For example, a new type of medicine comes out. Everything's halal to prove haram. Okay, that's correct. But the mujtahid needs to have the knowledge to know what makes something haram in order to know if it's haram or not. It's not that, wallah, because you don't know anything that makes it haram, yallah, it's halal. No, don't give the fatwa. These are just rules that we learn so we understand and we respect how fatwa are brought about. Some of the examples, and the Shaykh gave a few of them, we'll go through them because many of them are very practical for us. Numerous issues fall under this principle. Allah has ordered being good to one's parents, relatives, orphans, the poor, and wayfarers as being good to the entire creation. What's a wayfarer? In Arabic first. La. What's a wayfarer? Close to a traveler. Here in this context. Even in the Salah, وَابْنَ السَّبِيلِ. What's Ibn al-Sabil? The one that seeks hope. For what? Talk up, Ya Abdurrahman. Don't be shy. They can't hear you. You read for Allah Barak over a year. Don't worry. Speak loud.
He's traveling and he's asking for assistance.
For what?
In his travels or to go back.
Yani close. I'd expect the answer from downstairs, but from you, I'd expect a lot more clearer. A person is traveling and they get stuck in their travels and they need assistance getting back. So let's say, for example, someone came from, let's just say Lebanon. They came to Australia. They got sick, ended up in hospital and missed their flight back. They told you, Akhi, I've got $1,000. But the plane, because I was in hospital, I had to pay the hospital $1,000. And I missed my return ticket. So now I just need another $1,000 for me to get my flight back to Lebanon. I can't afford it. I have no other way of going. Okay? This person is Ibn Sabil. And that person is allowed to receive zakah. Therefore, all that is included in the word good, ihsan, which people practice customarily, then it applies to the commands of the Sharia. Because Allah generalized it, and good is the opposite and contrast of evil. As it is devoid of any form of good, be it in speech, action, or in giving wealth. The Prophet ﷺ said in the authentic hadith, Kullu ma'rufin sadaqa, every good act is charity. So when the person's asked, okay, what's the bare minimum for me to be good to my parents in terms of visiting? How often do I need to visit my parents to be considered a good child? We say it goes back to the Sharia. Is calling them and messaging them enough? It goes back to the Sharia. It goes back to the custom, my apologies. It goes back to the custom because it's not specified by the Sharia. So it goes back to the custom. If I need to financially assist my parents, to what extent do I need to financially assist them? We say it goes back to the custom. All of this goodness goes back to the custom. This is a clear text that indicates that every act a slave of Allah does to others, which is a type of good, then it is counted as an act of charity. Likewise, Allah and His Messenger ﷺ stipulated in commutative contracts, mu'awadat, when you're buying and selling, and donation contracts, tabarru'at, that both parties are satisfied, but they did not stipulate a specific wording for such contracts to apply, or any actions which indicate that the contract and satisfaction of the objective has been achieved. Accordingly, scholars state the contract is set by whatever statement or action indicates it. However, they exempt some issues and stipulate that a statement must be made due to potential harm. Leave that for a second. A person says, in terms of my parents, and then we'll get to contracts. We'll give some practical examples because we get asked about this a lot. A person, their parents live, for example, in housing commission, or they own their own home, and the car breaks down, so the father's asking the children, I need a car to get around, and I can't afford it, so I need you guys to assist me. Is that a reasonable ask from the father? Yes. Why? Because customarily, it's known that the people own their own cars in Australia. Let's say this father, he says, okay, I need my own car, and the average for that which is acceptable is, for example, a Toyota Corolla. Okay, as an example, a Toyota Corolla, and it's fine, good working condition. But the father says, I want you guys to buy me like a Lebanese. I don't know what the hell. I want you guys to buy me Mercedes AMG, for example. It's from Greenacre, this father. Okay. The father says, I want you to buy me an AMG. And the children, they can't afford that kind of car. They're not millionaires, they're not billionaires. They can't afford that type, not that they are anyway. That's so funny, Allah understand. But no, the children, they can't afford it. So they can afford a Corolla, they can't afford a Mercedes AMG. Is the father entitled to say, if you don't buy me that Mercedes, I'm going to be angry with you and I'm going to make dua against you until the day of judgment? No, he's not. Okay, he's not. What's in his right to ask for the Toyota Corolla? Yes, it's in his right because they're commanded to look after him and he needs it, and that's what's acceptable. Jayyid, that's what's acceptable. Let's say a father needs money for his children, from his children, weekly spending, whatever it is. The children, how much before they need to give their father money? Like, do the children need to give their father money even if they're going to be harmed, even if they're going to be out of pocket? No. When does the child have to help his father?
When he's able to provide for his family?
When he and his family are looked after. Tayyib, to what extent?
To the bare minimum of the custom?
To the custom. Okay? So let's say you got an average house and you got an average car. Alhamdulillah, your average affairs are looked after, your children's school fees, clothes are paid for, etc. This person now, anything on top of that, if his father needs help, he's obliged to look after his father and mother. Can a person says, Wallah, akhi, I can't afford it. But the reason he can't afford it is because he's renting a house, for example, 2,500 by choice. It's not a custom, by choice. He wants to live it up, he wants to live in a particular area, his wife wants a particular looking house. So he went above, well above the custom in order to get it. Or he wants to drive a very, very, very expensive car. It's halal. But now that his father is in need and he's going above the custom, could he be disobedient to his father in this case? Yes. Yes, of course. Because he went well above the custom in order to fulfill what he wanted. Not what he needed, what he wanted. And his father is in need, so he needs to assist his father. I hope the two are clear because we get asked about this, unfortunately, a fair bit.
What about the mother, Sheikh?
Same thing, the mother, father, same thing. The mother more important. Yeah. In contracts, okay, in contracts, how do you stipulate that the contract was agreed upon or the conditions of that contract, etc.? This also goes back to the custom of the people. There isn't a specific phrase in the Sharia that you say regarding business contracts that say, yes, I accepted the job, or no, I didn't accept the job. It could be anything that indicates it and it's not in that custom. For example, Assalamu alaikum akhi, how much are you selling the car? $10,000? Khair, inshallah. Done. Person said done. And they shook hands on it. And then the person says, khalas, I'll see you tomorrow, inshallah. The next day the person comes and says, he's at $10,000. I said, I sold the car. I said, what do you mean you sold the car? I said, yeah, you didn't tell me you want the car. We shook hands and I said, khalas, I'll see you tomorrow, inshallah. Customarily, what do we understand? That's sold. The guy wants the car and he's going to pick it up tomorrow, inshallah. The person can't say, no, you didn't say I want to sell the car, and I said, okay, I accept. Because customarily it's understood. Okay? Same thing with tabarru'at, that which is given as a gift. Okay, or a donation. Let's say a person, fundraising dinner. Okay? Brothers who wants to donate, a person puts his hand up, $20,000. The guy gives $20,000, Jazakallahu khairan, barakallahu fiqh. 6 months later, he calls up the charity, Assalamu alaikum akhi, alaikum salam wa barakatuh. Is that $6,000, sorry, $20,000 ready for me to pick up? What do you mean, just 24 pick up? Yeah, I gave you a loan 6 months ago. What do you mean you gave me a loan? Now, yeah, you were asking for $20,000 and I gave you $20,000 in the fundraising dinner, and now I need it back, Allah khalik. We would say to that person that what you done was a donation or a loan. It's clearly the context will tell you it's a donation. Okay, it's not a loan. It's very, very, very different. Same thing when people are going through divorces. I'm saying that one, alhamdulillah, it's never happened, and inshallah it never happens. But one common example is when people are going through a divorce, okay, and they talk about, and this isn't for any specific case here, okay, just so everyone knows. This is just an example that came to my mind. Someone gives something to someone in the marriage, or gives, I'm going to say gives, he gives something to the other party. Let's say they buy a car, Okay, the man buys a car for his wife to drive. And then after the divorce, she says, I'm keeping the car. Why are you keeping the car? She says, it's my car. How's it your car? The guy gifted it to me. If the husband gave it to the woman as a gift, after the divorce, whose is it? Hers, the wife's. Let's say he says, no, I never gifted you the car. I bought the car because we needed the family car. And obviously you're driving around with the kids, so you're the one that drives it. But the car's mine. If he bought the car, and he bought it as a family car, and anyone who's a dad knows, he bought the car and it's a family car, but he obviously gives it to his wife to drive because she's the one driving on the family. Okay? After, let's say they went for a divorce. Is it just getting a car for your wife to drive? Is that an indication that you gave it to her as a gift?
No.
No. Okay? It's only, here, Habibti, this is yours, it's your present. This is a big red ribbon. Tfaddali, barakallahu fiki, I love you so much. Here you go. Okay? This is how they work it out in courts. That's how they would work it out in courts when there's questions like this arise. When there isn't something clear cut, it's a gift, it's my car, it's your car. They work it out through the customs and what the actions indicated. Some exceptions to this, and again, these are things that the Sharia specified. Some exceptions, however, they exempt some issues and stipulate that a statement must be made due to the potential harm if it is not made verbally, such as marriage. The scholars state that it is necessary to accept verbally. Likewise, in the case of divorce, it cannot occur except by statement or writing. If a person done something to indicate that a person's married, we say, okay, it's not about indicating, it has to be direct. It has to be direct. I marry you to my daughter, Fulana, and you say, I accept. Okay? If let's say there's a father and there's a young man and he shows him a photo, for example, he says, what do you think of my daughter? And he says, mashallah, she's very beautiful. Jazakallah khairan. 2 witnesses that you're married. So, whoa, Hajj, relax. I know I'm a good boy, tabarakallah, but it's not that easy. He says, la, you said, mashallah, she's nice. Yeah, all right, I didn't say I'm going to marry her. In this case, la, the custom says you married. No, we said, no, the custom doesn't say you married. Here, the Sharia has to specify that you say, I marry you to my daughter Fulana, and he says, yes, I accept. This is a case where, because marriage is a contract, that's why he specified it. Marriage is a contract. But here, it has to be specific that there's a verbal offer and acceptance. Same thing with divorce. A woman really hates her husband. And the husband said, get out of here, man. And she said, oh, jazakallah khairan, it's divorce. No, whoa. Where did I say it's divorce? He said, get out of here. Get out of here. You're going to get to mom's house. Get to mom's house because we're not married anymore. La, where did you get said that? You're insane. Sit down. La, we're still married and we're still going through it, etc. You'd go back to the direct words of the person and then you say, okay, you didn't say you're divorced. Did you mean that you're divorced? No, khalas. Then you're not divorced. If it wasn't directly said, nor was it intended, then khalas, it's not a divorce. You can't just assume like you can in contracts. It has to be specific because the Sharia specified. The next example, contracts in which taking possession is stipulated, refers to whatever people consider taking possession to be. And this differs according to the circumstance. Likewise, in the case of guarding, whereby people entrust the protection of wealth to a guardian. The scholars stipulate that stealing refers to taking something guarded. The definition of a guard safe is based on custom, and therefore personal wealth can have different kinds of guardians, and other types of wealth have guardians. Everything has its consideration. Taking possession. Now you have a car. Snowy has a car that he wants to sell to Bilal. Bilal says, okay, drop her off at Ziyad's house. He says, okay, no problem. So he wants the car, he's selling the car. He drops it off at Ziyad's house. At Ziyad's house, someone steals it. Who wears it? Bilal because he wanted it, or Snowy because he's selling it? Oof. دغري هيك ضاع. Yes, sir.
You said to bring it to his residence.
The one that agrees to take a shit, it's on him after the thing's done.
If by custom, it's known when he says drop it off at Ziyad's house, the transaction is complete, then the transaction is complete and he is the one that wears it. Okay, he's the one that wears it.
Sorry, I didn't understand who wears it.
The one who told him, drop it off there. And he understood in custom, once it's at Ziyad's house and the car's fine, that's it, the transaction is finished.
She also did.
Now he has to give him the money, inshallah.
Who was the seller, sorry?
This one here, the white guy.
So the person purchasing
Yeah.
has to wear it.
Yeah.
He said drop it off.
Because he stipulated.
Oh, the one that purchased
Okay,
it,
yeah.
the one
Because he stipulated. Okay, this is an example of taking possession. In other times, let's say you go to a phone store, okay, and you say, brother, I want to have a look at that phone. I'm interested in buying an iPhone. Please let me see that phone. You're holding the phone. You're looking at the phone. You want to buy it. You haven't said anything to him, but you're just looking at it. And a person comes in, buys you, and the phone drops. Is it your phone or is it the shop's phone still? Shop's phone. You haven't taken ownership. Even though you want to buy it and you're intending to buy it, but you haven't bought it yet. There's no transaction, no nothing. Khalas, there's no ownership taken in something like that. So things which are obvious that, okay, the custom here states that what you've done is a sign of you taking ownership, then that's it. It's done. It's finished. And also an example is, if you get, let's say the car example again. Snowy, I want to buy the car off you for $10,000. Snowy says, all right, I'll hold it for you until tomorrow. I'll hold it for you until tomorrow, 12 o'clock, inshallah. 12 o'clock comes, Bilal didn't come. That will entitle Snowy to do what? To sell it. Okay, because the agreement is clearly, I'm going to hold it to you. It's not that I'm going to sell it to you. No, it's not sold yet. It's not sold. It's, I'm holding it for you. You don't come, I'm going to sell it to someone else. Deposits, same, very similar thing. Someone paid a deposit. Okay, Bilal paid Snowy a deposit, $2,000 for the car. And he says, Khalas, give me until the end of the week, I'll come with the rest of the money, inshallah, and I'll purchase it. He says, Ahlan wa sahlan. He gives him $2,000. End of the week comes, he doesn't come with the car. And so he doesn't come with the rest of the money. What can Snowy do?
Take the deposit.
Take the deposit and keep the car. There is difference of opinion about deposits, but according to the custom, Allahu Alam, no issue. If you entrust the protection of wealth to a guardian, al-wadi'a, I give Bilal my car. Forget Bilal. I'll give Rayhan. Because I can imagine this happening. I give Rayhan my car. I say, Rayhan, I'm going to Lebanon for a week. Please look after my car. I come back from Lebanon. Say, Rayhan, please, I want to get my car. Allah khalik. He says, Sheikh, the car's not there anymore. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So now I've entrusted something to Rayhan. Let's say it's just my Kluger. Okay? It's normal Kluger, it's nothing fancy. Normally, where is acceptable to park, for example, a Kluger? Normally. Especially in my later model. Yeah, in front of the house on the road, no issue, inshallah. The car's gone. Rayhan, did you lock the car? Wallah, I locked the car. So you done everything customarily known to get the car, for the car not to be stolen. He says yes. If it gets stolen, la qaddar Allah, do I say you have to give me the money? This is a big problem because a lot of people, they'll follow up him and say, I entrusted you with it, now you have to pay me the money. That's wrong. Al-wadi'a, the person's not responsible for any losses that happen. Let's say someone came, la qaddar Allah, and scratched my car. Someone came and scratched it. Do I say it's your fault because you parked it on the road and it's someone came and keyed it, so you have to pay for the paint job? No. Why? He done everything that's normally understood when you're entrusted to look after it. Let's say I had a Lamborghini, Allahumma barik. I had a Lamborghini and I went to Lebanon and came back and the car's not there. So, where's my Lamborghini? He says, well, I parked it on the road and subhanAllah, got stolen. In that case, is he negligent, yes or no? Yes. 100%, because no one parks a Lamborghini on the road. That's understood. Okay? Let's say he parked in his front yard on the grass. Let's say he parked in his front yard on the grass. Is that negligent, yes or no?
Yes.
He's got no fence, no nothing. Just open. Yeah, of course, it will be considered negligence. Because you still don't park something like that on the road. Okay? So when you entrust something to someone, how they're not responsible for anything that happens to it. The only time they're responsible is when they're negligent in looking after it. And that all goes back to the custom. All goes back to the custom. This is a very, very bad one, what I just mentioned. Because a lot of people, they entrust things to people and it gets wrecked or whatever it is, or it goes missing, and they blame the person. And they say, "La, you have to give it to me," and they have big issues. Yeah, they have big issues over it. A safekeeper who loses something or transgresses, then he is liable for whatever people consider negligence, or transgression. The ruling is connected to that, as we mentioned. Whoever finds something, it is binding upon him to make it known for an entire year according to the custom. And then if he is unable to find its owner, he becomes the owner. Al-luqata. Okay, you find something of value, you have to announce it for a year. What's the announcement for a year? How do you do it? It goes according to the custom. Let's say you found, for example, a gold diamond ring. Looks like someone's wedding ring. Okay, and you need to announce it. How do you announce? Like, what are some normal ways that a person will announce something that they lost? For a Muslim trading post. Yeah, it's okay. Something normal. You found something. Would you announce on 2GB?
Sorry?
No, you wouldn't. You just put it on social media. You put maybe like an ad on Gumtree. Usually, it's going to be something free. Okay, they put, "I found something of value. If you've lost something of value, please let me know." But would you have to go and get a billboard and do 2GB? You wouldn't have to do that. Okay, that's worth more than the ring now. Okay, so how do you announce? Again, it goes back to the custom. And after that year, no one finds it, then you can take it. If someone comes, this is just a side note on a luqata, because again, a lot of people are misunderstanding on this. Let's say after a year, someone comes and says, "I heard that you found something, and I only just got back from my travels overseas. I've been gone for 2 years. Do you still have it?" And you've gifted it to your wife. What happens there?
You give it back to him.
You have to give back to them, okay? Because it's still this. Endowments in banks. This is something, wadi'a in banks. Don't worry about that. In the same light, the ruling on possession of a thing, such as a house, and its surrounding land, if applicable. Strange, but all right. Oh, yes, sir?
Yeah.
Kill it with your hand, with your phone. For Abu Dhabi.
Is it allowed to kill it?
Yeah, it's going to come and try and kill me. Allahu Alam, I want to turn into Spider-Man. Allahu Alam. In the same way, the ruling on possession of a thing such as a house, etc., and its surrounding land, if applicable, is that whoever possesses something and he acts with it freely for a long period of time, then it is considered to belong to him unless a proof is presented which indicates otherwise. You've got a fence, for example, you've got a fence between your house and your neighbor's house. In 15 years' time, your neighbor wants to do the renovations, and he finds plans that your fence is actually 2 meters into his land. Without that paper, he says, your land is actually, in reality, my land. Initially, who's it for? The person who has it. That's your fence line. This is my fence line. So I have this, you have that. That's al-asl. If he was to go take me to court simply by his belief, I would win. But let's say he brings original papers from council from 50 years ago when the landscaping, when the surveying and the marking out was done, and it shows that someone has moved the fence 2 meters into his land. Then because of that proof, he can get it back. But originally, his simple claim doesn't mean anything. Okay, his simple claim doesn't mean anything because I'm the one that has it in my hand. This is something also in when it comes to the Sharia and ruling. If someone makes claim to something, it is for whoever it's with now until it's proven otherwise. So let's say, again, Snowy and Abdul Rahman. Abdul Rahman says, the car that Snowy is driving is mine. So he says, no, it's not, Habibi, I'm the one driving it. He says, no, it's mine, and I'm guarantee you it's mine. So I said, okay, we'll go to a sheikh, we'll go to a semi-court. So they go there. The sheikh originally, the original ruling is that it's for whoever the car is with. Who's the car with? Snowy. Okay, it's Snowy's car until Abdul Rahman proves otherwise that it's his. Witnesses, etc. Referring back to what is customary accepted in terms of spending on wives, relatives, possessions, employees, etc. Just as Allah and His Messenger ﷺ have clarified that a referral is to be made to one's customs with respect to living with wives, the term living, mu'ashara, is more comprehensive than spending and therefore includes all that occurs between the two spouses in terms of speech and action when living together, and the term is entirely confined by custom. So when you say, okay, this person is treating his wife good or not, The wife says, Sheikh, I want to complain about my husband. Faddali, he doesn't spend on me. What do you mean doesn't spend on you? The husband says, Sheikh, wallah, I pay the rent. I pay $700 every week. Isn't that enough? I'll give her a roof over her head. We say, okay, what else do you spend on? No, besides that, not worry, Sheikh. But 700 a week, Sheikh. She wants more than 700 a week. Allahu Akbar, how big her eye is. We say, hey, what's the norm in Australia? What's the norm? It's more than just the rent. There's rent, there's a present here and there, there's taking her out, there's a decent car, there's a lot more than just the rent. So a person can't claim and say, la, I want this. She can actually, in cases like that, and I'm not trying to empower the women to go, or encourage the women to go and do khula, la. But if she says, I want a divorce from this man because he doesn't spend on me. He's very, 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 very tight. He doesn't treat me like the other women in the custom. Then she has rights to do so. Okay, she has rights to do so. Be careful, brothers. Tayyib, khalas, I'll give one for the brothers. Let's say a woman says she goes home tonight to her husband, and I don't know why the mashaykh say this, but she goes home and says, Habib al-Alb, guess what? I learned from the sheikh that I don't have to cook for you, and I don't have to clean for you, and I don't have to get to your mother's house, and then.
Which is true, yeah?
We're getting there. She says all of that. Is it we automatically say, yeah, wallah, you're right, barakallahu fiki, that's correct, don't cook for me, don't clean for me, don't do anything? What do we say? We get back to the custom. If I knew you have to that you're not going to cook for me and you're not going to clean for me, I wouldn't have married you. I wouldn't have married you. Any person that you're asking the custom, that the woman, what's the guy's roles, what's the women's roles, forget gender roles. We don't care about gender roles. And people were saying, oh, you can't say about gender roles, and we're in 2021 or 22, whatever year we're in now, Allah have given up. It's gone, it's finished. No, we don't talk about gender roles. Everyone needs to pay a share in the house. No, it's not everyone has to pay a share in the house. Not everyone should and can and is encouraged to. But when it comes to has to, the man is obliged to provide certain things, and the woman is also obliged to provide certain things. If we live in a time like when the ulama that spoke about these matters, if we lived in their time, no problem. What did they have at that time? They had slaves and servants. 100% the wife doesn't have to cook. Why? Because it's known the slave does everything. Do we have slaves here today? You got men, men are usually, unfortunately, turned into slaves many a time. Illa man rahima rabbi. But we don't have slaves. So who's going to cook and clean the house? Is it going to be the man or the woman? Customarily, who does what? The woman is the one that does it. Let's say you go to some countries where the norm is that they get servants. Let's say, for example, if you're from an affluent part of Saudi or the Khalij, the Arab Gulf, in many of those customs, it's known the wife doesn't cook and clean. Why? Because they hire servants. If that's the custom of that person, then yes, 100% the wife has in all right to say, I am not cooking and cleaning. Because the custom states, I don't cook and clean, you get me a servant that cooks and cleans, which is no issue. Ahlan wa sahlan. But for the normal people like us, who can't afford it, then, with all due respect, when we got married, this was the understanding. And if it wasn't understanding, we wouldn't have got married. It's as simple as that. My apologies to the feminists out there. The menstruating woman refers to her particular habit of menstruation when she is unable to distinguish whether she has stopped menstruating or not. If she is excused from knowing this because of forgetfulness, etc., then she should refer back to the habit of the women in her family, otherwise the habit of the women in her land. A woman, she doesn't have aada, she can't do tamyiz, okay, she's always bleeding. How does she know how many days to sit out of her menses? She goes back to the norm of her women. The men have no idea what I'm talking about. The women, inshallah, do. Defects, fraud, and deceit all return back to custom. So whatever the people consider a defect, an act of fraud or deceit, then the ruling is based on that. Let's say a defect, okay? A guy sells a car. Khalas, I'll leave Snowy alone for now. Dhafir, Allahumma barik, and you're going to let it go anyway because of his soles of his hands, tabarakallah. Dhafir sells dhahab, a car, okay? And it's a second-hand car, and after a week of driving the car, Dhahab notices it's a second-hand car. He's 15 years old. That on the bottom of the left passenger seat, there's a little rip. Because of Dhafir and says, brother, I want my money back. Why? There's a little rip on the seat and you didn't tell me about it. Dhafir says, I would give you a kaf, but I don't want to do anything haram. Let's go back to the Sharia. They get to an Islamic court. What's the issue? The plaintiff says, I bought a car of Dhafir, and it's a second-hand car, 15 years old, and he didn't tell me about a rip on the seat, I want a refund. The judge will say to him what? Pretty much. Okay? The judge will say to him, this is known that a car that old, it's going to have deficiencies like that. It's going to have a scratch, it's going to have a little bit of a tear, it's going to have things that are normal. Okay? Things like that sort of issue. Yes, 100%. It's going to have those things, so it's thrown out straight away. It says, Jazakallah khairan, yani, better luck next time. Okay? Let's say, same scenario, but it's not Dhafir because he wouldn't do something like this. It's some other dodgy guy, okay, named Gregory. Gregory sells Dhahab a car, and Dhahab buys the car. He hasn't driven it. He says, mate, I can't drive it. I really want the car, but I can't drive it now. I'm at work, and the guy really needs the money. Is everything working? He says, yes. He says, okay, beautiful. How much? 10,000? I'll transfer you 10,000, drop it off at my house. So he does that. You didn't drive the car, but he tells you everything's in working condition. Dhahab goes home. He says, mashallah, Allahumma barik. Brand new, what do you like? Supra, brand new Supra. Allahumma barik. Okay, manual, I probably don't know how to drive manual, but I'll give it to you. All these new guys don't know how to drive manual. Okay, so he gets home, he knows how to drive manual. He jumps in the car. First gear, mashallah. Second gear, mashallah. Third gear, mashallah. Gets to put in fourth gear, there's no fourth gear. Where's fourth gear? It's not there. Boom, boom, boom. What's happening? Nothing's there. Fifth gear, yeah, fifth gear's there. Go back to fourth gear, there's nothing there. Okay? Does he have right now to fix this issue?
Yes.
Of course, he can go back to Gregory. He says, Gregory, you can either cancel the sale, okay? Or you can tell Gregory, give me back enough money in order to fix the gearbox. Alright? So, if it's a major defect, obviously this is not something expected in that transaction. And in terms of Dhafir's case, it's expected. Alright? So it goes back to the custom and what's expected and what's not expected from deficiencies in matters. Likewise, referring to the equivalent amount in items which are valuables, damaged goods, or warranties. If something, let's say Ziyad, okay, Ziyad does a kitchen for you, Allahumma barik, advanced joinery, he goes and says, we do the best kitchens in the whole of Sydney, the whole of Australia, come on, the whole of the southern hemisphere. Allah, huh? He does the best kitchen in the whole of the southern hemisphere. So he does a job for you, and Allahumma barik, you're very, very, very happy with the kitchen. After 1 week, one of the doors, the hinges, it starts to come loose, and the door is starting to lean. Is that fair to call him after 1 week of the door leaning because of the hinge it came loose, to say you should come back and do it for free? Is that reasonable? 100%. If after 15 years, you say, brother, you know the poly that you done, it's starting to get a little bit yellow. It didn't last a long time. Please come and do it for free. Is that reasonable? Obviously not. Okay? How would we know? It goes back to the custom. Unless, of course, he said lifetime warranty or it lasts guaranteed 20 years, that goes back on him. And likewise, requesting a fair dowry for the woman who is entitled to it, but the amount was not stated, or the stated amount is invalid, fasida, like a person giving something haram. The amount varies according to the women, times, and places. A man gets married to a woman. I don't know. What's wrong with that? Abdul Rahman, how do we fix that echo? We're about to finish anyway. To where? Away from. So that's towards me, ya Abdul Rahman. Outward, okay. Towards the east. طيب. A person gets married without a mahar. A guy really loves a girl, and she really loves him, and he goes to the dad, and he says, I want to marry your daughter Fatima. And the dad also really loves the guy, and there's 2 witnesses there. He says, Khalas, I marry you to my daughter Fatima. And the guy says, I accept. And there's 2 witnesses there. Are they married, yes or no? Yes, they're married. Did they put a mahar? They were that in love, they forgot about the mahar. 2 years down the track, they're going through some problems in their life. So they want to get religious, because people only get religious when they have problems, alhamdulillah. And in the lesson, they get to a lesson about marriage, Allahumma barik. And they hear from the things which are an obligation in marriage is mahar. So she looks at him after the lesson, she says, you didn't give me mahar. He says, yeah, wallah, I didn't give you mahar. He says, "Khalas, it's an obligation, I want my mahar." He says, "Of course, no problem. How much do you want?" She says, "I want 100,000. He says, "No, I want to give you 1,000. They don't agree on a mahar. What do we go back to if they disagree? The custom of the people. Okay, so what she entitled to now, she's entitled to the custom of the people, and her socio-economic status, and her class of people, the society that they're in. Let's say for them, their particular case, with their social circle, okay, their class of people is, for example, 50,000, then that's what will be the accepted. 50,000, not less. Okay, or 100,000 no less, or 20,000 no less. Okay, all of it goes back to the custom of those people, and that's how you know when things, again, aren't, with all these examples, when things aren't specified in the Sharia, they go back to the customs always. And the likes of the aforementioned examples are treated similarly by making analogies. There are many and can be found in the books of rulings. Alhamdulillah, this is the end of the book. This does not make you an expert in al-qawaid al-fiqhiyyah. As we mentioned at the beginning, you guys chose the easier option, okay, which is part of the sunnah, but not necessarily when it comes to wanting to become a strong student of knowledge. But alhamdulillah, I hope through it there were some things that you benefited from in terms of understanding how fatwa are derived, and having the ability to understand different matters and how new matters are looked at by the fuqaha. Inshallah, Ramadan will obviously stop, and then we'll continue with something new after Ramadan. هذا والله أعلم. صلى الله على محمد وعلى آله محمد وصحبه أجمعين.